The office door wasn't supposed to be unlocked. Ethan Cole stood frozen in the quiet hallway, his hand still resting on the cold metal handle, his heart suddenly pounding in a way that had nothing to do with deadlines or missed emails. Inside the corner office, the one no one entered without permission, the one that symbolized power, control, and untouchable authority, his CEO was breaking. Not just upset, not just stressed. Crying. And not the kind of tears someone quickly wipes away before a meeting. No, this was silent, trembling, shoulders-shaking grief. Ethan knew he should step back, close the door, pretend he saw nothing. That's what people did in places like this, especially around someone like Claire Whitmore. But something in that moment refused to let him move. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of people who keep going no matter what, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Real Single Dad Life. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Ethan slowly pushed the door open just a little more, not enough to intrude, but enough to confirm what he was seeing wasn't some trick of light or imagination. Claire Whitmore, the woman who ran a billion-dollar company with an iron will, who never raised her voice yet commanded entire rooms, who had a reputation for being unbreakable, was sitting at her desk, head lowered, hands clenched tightly in her hair, tears falling freely onto a stack of untouched documents. The sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows cast long, sharp shadows across the office, making the moment feel even more exposed, more real. Ethan swallowed hard. This wasn't something he was supposed to see. But then the floor creaked beneath his foot. Claire's head snapped up. Their eyes met. For a split second, there was shock, raw, unfiltered, vulnerable. And then, just as quickly, it was replaced by something else. Fear. Not fear of him, but fear of being seen. Ethan stepped forward immediately, his voice low, careful, steady, like he used when comforting his daughter after a nightmare. He told her he was sorry, that he didn't mean to interrupt, that he could leave. But Claire didn't tell him to go. Instead, she wiped her face quickly, though it didn't help much, and stared at him like she was trying to decide something important. Something that weighed far more than any business decision. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she made a request that completely stunned him. She asked him to stay. Ethan hesitated. Not because he didn't want to help, but because he knew lines were being crossed. Invisible, unspoken boundaries that people like him, single dads working mid-level positions, trying to hold their lives together, weren't supposed to cross with people like her. But something about the way she looked at him, not as an employee, not as someone beneath her, but simply as another human being, made it impossible to walk away. So he stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and everything began to change. Ethan's life wasn't easy, and it never had been. Ever since his wife passed away 3 years earlier, it had been him against the world, raising his 6-year-old daughter Ava while juggling work, bills, and a constant undercurrent of exhaustion that never really went away. His mornings started before sunrise, packing lunches, brushing tangled hair, making sure Ava smiled before dropping her off at school even when he barely had the strength to smile himself. His days were filled with spreadsheets, meetings, and the quiet pressure of trying not to fall behind. And his nights were the hardest, because that's when the silence hit. That's when the empty space beside him in bed felt loudest. But he never complained, because Ava needed him. And that was enough. Claire Whitmore, on the other hand, seemed to live in a completely different universe. She arrived in sleek cars, wore perfectly tailored suits, and spoke with a calm authority that made even the most confident executives second-guess themselves. People admired her, feared her, respected her, but no one really knew her. Until now. Ethan stood a few feet from her desk, unsure of what to say, unsure of what role he was supposed to play in this moment. Claire took a slow breath, steadying herself, and then looked directly at him. She told him she needed help. Not as a CEO, not as his boss, but as a person. And what she asked next hit him harder than anything else that day. She asked him if he would take care of her daughter. Not forever, just for a little while. Ethan blinked, certain he must have misunderstood. But Claire continued. She explained that her daughter, Lily, had been struggling, quietly, deeply, in ways Claire hadn't fully seen until it was almost too late. Between endless work, constant pressure, and trying to maintain control over every aspect of her life, Claire had missed the signs. Missed the loneliness. Missed the fear. Missed the silent cries for attention that children often hide behind smiles. And now, everything was unraveling. Lily needed stability. Warmth. Presence. The kind of care Claire realized she hadn't been able to give. And somehow, through small moments, seeing Ethan leave early to pick up Ava, hearing him talk gently on the phone, noticing the way his daughter lit up when she visited the office once, Claire had come to a quiet, desperate conclusion. Ethan was the kind of parent her daughter needed right now. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle over him like a storm. This wasn't a simple favor. This was trust, responsibility, risk. He thought about Ava, about their already fragile routine, about how thin his time was stretched. But then he thought about a little girl, Lily, who might be sitting somewhere right now, feeling unseen. And he thought about Claire, the strongest woman in the building, sitting in front of him, broken in a way no one would ever believe if they hadn't seen it. And he said yes. The days that followed were unlike anything Ethan had experienced before. Lily was quiet when he first met her. Not shy in the usual sense, but withdrawn, like someone who had learned to keep her feelings locked away because no one had been there to hear them. Ava, on the other hand, was sunlight in human form. Bright, curious, relentlessly kind. It didn't take long for her to pull Lily into her world. At first, it was small things, sharing crayons, sitting close during cartoons, asking simple questions without pressure. And slowly, almost invisibly, Lily began to open up. Ethan watched it happen in real time. Watched two little girls build a bridge between their worlds without even realizing it. And something inside him shifted. Because for the first time in a long time, his home felt fuller. Warmer. Not because life had become easier, but because it had become shared. Claire visited when she could. But it was clear that every visit came with a quiet guilt. She tried to smile. Tried to reconnect. But Lily often stayed closer to Ethan and Ava. Not out of rejection, but out of comfort. And that hurt Claire more than anything. Ethan saw it. And one afternoon, as sunlight filled the small living room and the girls laughed over something trivial, he sat beside Claire and told her something simple but powerful. He told her she hadn't lost her daughter. She had just gotten lost along the way. And she still had time to find her again. That moment changed everything. Claire didn't try to fix things overnight. She started small. Being present. Listening. Showing up, even when it was uncomfortable. And slowly, Lily began to respond. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to smile more. Enough to reach for her mother's hand again. Enough to believe. Weeks turned into months. And the arrangement that had started as a desperate request became something deeper. Not dependency. Not obligation. But connection. Ethan and Claire found themselves talking more. Not about work. Not about responsibilities. But about life. Loss. Fear. Hope. They were two people who had been carrying the world on their shoulders for too long. And somehow, they had found each other in the middle of it. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft shades of orange, the four of them sat together. No titles, no expectations, just a shared moment of quiet happiness. And Ethan realized something. Strength didn't always look like control. Sometimes it looked like asking for help, like opening a door you were afraid to open, like letting someone see you at your weakest and trusting them to stay. If this story has touched your heart in any way, take a moment to like, comment, and share it. Stories like this remind us that even in our hardest moments, connection can change everything. And before we end, here's something special. Comment, kindness still matters, if you believe small acts of compassion can truly change lives. Because sometimes, all it takes is one open door and one person willing to step inside. And everything changes.